A family from Norwich say they could be left homeless because of delays to the completion of their new home. Gemma and Scott Wilson were expecting to move into their new build 8 weeks ago at their new property at Heather Gardens in Heatherset. They sold their home earlier this year and decided to stay in a caravan with their young child and 2 dogs, thinking it would only be a matter of weeks before they moved into their new home. But they say the completion date is continually pushed back and the caravan park that they are staying in doesn't open all year round, so they've now got nowhere to go. Gemma says they're certainly finding things hard.
I was absolutely devastated. The thought of having a newborn baby, and I've also got a 16-month-old. So the thought of having the 2 of them in the caravan was just, I was really disappointed. It turned out that way.
Taylor Wimpey say they apologise for the delays and they now intend to get the couple into their new home on Friday. Let's grab a word now with Rosemary Farman, who is a partner and head of conveyancing at Clapham Collinge Solicitors. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Morning, thanks for coming in. OK, so does this kind of delay sound fairly typical to you?
It is fairly typical with new build properties, unfortunately, and my experience is that the person who shouts the loudest normally gets in.
Interesting.
In the earliest.
OK, that's really interesting. So when you're working through the process, what kind of excuses are you hearing as to why there are delays?
It's normally due to materials, weather. I mean, weather is understandable, obviously. If you're building, it's quite difficult to build in the wet. I'm having an extension built just now and my builder keeps on saying, sorry, can't come in today, and the weather is so bad on occasions. But it is possible lack of an understanding judgment as to how long it's going to take to complete the process. You would expect that builders would know what they were doing, but they do come up with these excuses. Yeah,
and I guess it's very frustrating when you pass that information on to your clients.
It is indeed, yes.
Yeah, OK, so do developers have a duty of care to their buyers, and is there anything binding in the date that they have set?
There is nothing binding in the date. The contracts have what we call a long stop date in them, which means that if the property isn't completed by this long stop date, either party can withdraw. However, that long stop date is a long period. The contracts normally say that completion will take place in a certain month, in a certain quarter, but nothing better than that. And a lot of it is down to the client actually continually chasing the site office in order to get a date, if at all possible.
The long stop's fascinating, because how far can you push the long stop back? Because if somebody then said, look, well, there's a long stop in this contract, I'm not delivering this house for 4 years, would you have no comeback?
Normally it wouldn't be that. You wouldn't recommend that a client obviously accepted that period, but I have seen long stops of 6 months. So you have a date and then another long stop date of 6 months.
Yeah. OK, so what about the fact that a new build is typically the end of the chain and there is a misconception that there won't be any major problems? The reality is, as you're saying, that long stop gives them a lot of flexibility to push things back, and I guess at that point the rest of the chain might start to fall down.
You have to deal with the rest of the chain carefully, because obviously you can't have the rest of the chain all on notice. You can possibly get one transfer on notice or contract on notice, but the majority of them will have to be to fixed date, which means that someone has to break the chain and move into a caravan, as the poor Wilsons have had to do.
Yeah. What can we do to try and make the industry more transparent, to try and make it fairer, to try and make it a smoother process as possible?
It's very difficult when you have new builds involved, because you've got a different body there, I suppose, and you've got a developer who's dealing with their own requirements. The process itself is... It's getting better. I think we will go back to a son of HIP, the old home information pack, because we have a lot of information that we have to gather during the course of a conveyancing transaction, a lot of which is not legal work anyway. I mean, I reckon that 95% of my job is administration, dealing with clients, and 5% is law. So it's a process. It's a paper-driven process. One of the comments that was made earlier by Chris Carl, I think it was, from the Federation of Master Builders, was that solicitors know the length of the chain. We don't. We know what's happening immediately above us, immediately below us, but we don't know how long the chain is, and it's only by speaking to agents that we can gather that information.
And agents aren't always going to be accurate with the information that they pass on.
They may not know as well, because some agents don't speak to others. Sometimes if you've got online agents involved in a chain, they don't really know what's going on. So it's quite difficult to glean what's going on, but a good agent will do that for you.
I mean, this is the thing, though. Maybe the solicitor needs to have that information. Then we support our solicitors more by giving them that information, because the one thing about a solicitor in the process is they're not the salesperson. So actually they can give you really good, balanced and impartial advice.
Yes.
So if you knew the length of the sale, and if there was legislation to back up our solicitors to actually have that information to hand, that might help the buyer.
I think it certainly would help the buyer, because we can then advise the buyer as to whether or not they should proceed with that particular chain. In the past, I have said to my clients, don't go with that person because it doesn't look as if it's the best thing for you in your circumstances. And that's not really a legal issue. That's a practical, what would I do in their circumstances?
If I said to you, I'd be prepared to pay you more, having been through this many times, I'd be prepared to pay you more if you were able to ask questions further down and further up the chain, which I don't believe you can at the moment.
No,
you can only deal one way and the other.
No.
I mean, this is like chess, isn't it? You can only move one way or the other. So if you could say, I'm going to bypass that solicitor because this one is a slow-moving solicitor, and I'm going to try and G them up a little bit and put a bit of pressure on them, I mean, that would be fantastic.
We do in practice do that on occasions. If we can find out who is further down the chain, we will ring the agent and ask the agent to chase further down the chain. Similarly, I have agents who ring me up and say, I know you're not my immediate transaction, but I need to know what's happening, and I know you'll tell me. And I think that's part of it, actually, having the ability to push the process through for clients and to actually chase it for them.
Yeah, okay. Rosemary's very wise words at the beginning of the interview I'm going to highlight. He who shouts the loudest wins.
What I'd like to comment is there is a consumer code for house builders which they are supposed to abide by, and which they're supposed to hand out to anybody who goes to buy a new build property. And that sets out the ideals, but unfortunately the ideals don't always work.
Yep, okay. Rosemary, great to see you this morning.
You're
Thank you
very
so much
welcome.
for your time.
You're very welcome. I'll go and try and move some people into some houses
Yes,
now.
yeah.
Okay.
How many people are you going to get moved today?
Well, not too many on a Tuesday. Which day is it? Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Oh, gosh,
Don't worry, I do that every morning.
Okay, thank you very much.
Rosemary, thank you. Rosemary Farman there, partner and head of conveyancing at Clapham Collinge Solicitors. We're going to hear more from Gemma Wilson after 8 o'clock. And if you want to pitch in with your experiences, 0800 389 7321.